Welcome to the Fall Global Town Hall meeting. It is wonderful to see everyone. As a reminder, this is a different format this year. We took seriously the feedback that people gave us over the course of the last several months about what you've liked about the previous town halls, what you wished we did more of, what you wish we did less of. And the comms team has come up with a new model for how we'll be doing the town halls based on your feedback to continue to make this a better experience for everyone. So today's format is a format we'll pick up again at the end of the year, in that I will talk about some strategic initiatives and key things that are going on campus and on my plate that affect us as a division. Then I'm going to be inviting into the room Mike Hildreth, who is our new vice president and dean of the graduate school, and we'll have a interactive chat. And after that, you'll be able to ask, after both of those segments, both my talk about what's going on campus and the strategic plan, and then my conversation with Mike, there will be time for us to have interactive question and answer. I really hope people seize the moment and take advantage of that and actually do take the time to ask a question. We're a large group. We span 4 screens in the Zoom room. So please raise your hand just so that I can see and make sure that everyone gets acknowledged in the Q&A. But I hope it's really more of an interactive session and more of a conversation throughout our 1 hour. We only have 1 hour, so it will go quickly. I want to welcome everyone to the new academic year as well. For those in the global network, many of you have welcomed a record number of students who are studying abroad. Thank you for getting them in safely. I also want to thank the ISSA team, as I did yesterday in our local division meeting here in South Bend, for their warm welcome of our international students. As everyone should be aware, we have the most number of international students that we have ever had on campus, both at the undergraduate and graduate level. And this is part of our ongoing strategy. I'll talk a little bit about this in a few minutes, but it's part of our ongoing strategy to constantly become a more global university. Before I launch into talking about the strategic plan and some interesting initiatives that I'm working on that serve both the division and the university as a whole, I want to start by shouting out, really commending in particular, our colleagues in Ireland and especially those at O'Connell House. It is really important for people throughout the division to understand what an amazing task they pulled off at the end of August. As you may or may not be aware, we had 40,000 people traveling from the US to go see the game at Aviva Stadium in Dublin. This has been a long time in the making. We'd not had a game since 2012. And I have been serving on the steering committee for the last 2 years with a number of other vice presidents to make sure that the week in Dublin was a complete success for Notre Dame in every way, shape, and form. Nowhere did it seem more successful than at O'Connell House. On the Thursday of that week, we blessed the house and celebrated 25 years of study abroad. So Kevin, Emer, and the entire team at O'Connell House hosted our 3 executive officers, VIPs from both around Ireland and the US, Board of Trustee members. It was a terrific event. And our students were there. Our students played an important part in the game, unfurling the flag at the stadium on Saturday. I just want to commend that team's work. They hosted alumni who had come back from those past 25 years. They gave tours of the house. They ran excursions. They participated in lectures. It was, by all accounts, an astounding event. So please join me in your emoji of choice or your applause button to thank them for representing NDI so well and representing the University of Notre Dame. Kevin or Emer, would you like to add anything to that, speaking on behalf of your team?
No, thank you though for those very kind and appreciated words. It feels like a long time ago already now, but it was a truly brilliant, wonderful week or couple of weeks because some people stayed a little bit longer, and it was just an honor and a privilege to be able to welcome Notre Dame to Dublin and to Ireland. So it was brilliant, and again, the team here were unbelievable, above and beyond anything that we would ever dream or expect of them. So it was fabulous. So thank you to everybody and to Notre Dame, NDI especially, and to Michael and Hong, because again, our students had the most amazing start to a semester. We're a little bit concerned about maybe what what the expectations and how it will go for the rest of the semester, but it was an amazing, truly unique experience for them. And yeah, just wonderful to be able to share that with them. So yeah, super. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Emer. I will add as well that our faculty were as pleased as our students and our alumni. All of the academic sessions that we held throughout the week, almost without exception, were fully subscribed, if not overly subscribed, standing room only. So we helped run a cybersecurity conference in conjunction with AIG that brought executives from all over Ireland, faculty members, cybersecurity and tech experts. We had a fantastic series run by the Keogh Nocton Institute with the Aarons Project, talking about the future of Northern Ireland and Ireland together. We had a really interesting tour of Dublin through thanks to the libraries and library technology. We had film screenings. We had other cultural and musical events, all very well received. We also were hosting the three presidents of the three main universities that we work with there: Dublin City University, Trinity University, and University College Dublin. The one other thing I want to say before I move to talking about the strategic plan, staying on Ireland, was that on the Thursday night of that week, there was a formal dinner in honor of Carmel and Martin Nocton. For those that live far afield from Ireland, you might not be aware, Martin is a former trustee of the university. Martin and Carmel have been stalwart benefactors to all of the work that we do in Ireland over all of the years. They're wonderful friends and stewards of the university and our relationship, and we couldn't do what we do in Ireland in part without their support and encouragement. At the dinner honoring them, that Father Jenkins celebrated their support for the university over so many decades. He went ahead and made a big announcement, which I have not sent an email out, but I want to announce to the group as well, because it was part of the goodness and richness that came out of Ireland. It was announced by Father John to the group that Lisa Caulfield's position will now be an endowed position, and she is now the Carmel and Martin Nocton director of Kylemore Abbey. This is a huge deal, and I am really pleased. And it was in recognition of her leadership and the tremendous work we've done in the west of Ireland. Please join me in congratulating Lisa for this accomplishment. Lisa, are you here?
I am here.
Would you like to say something about that? Because what people don't know is that you were completely surprised and blindsided at the event.
Yeah, so one of the gifts they gave was a picture of a castle, which is right here. And I thought they gave the wrong castle to me, because it's actually Dublin Castle. So I thought they made an error. It's not been the first time that it happened, but it's actually, it was commemorating that it was created at Dublin Castle. So, but I was so shocked I didn't realize. I thought it was wrong.
I appreciate your humility, but I think what people should know is that as part of the new strategic plan and the new strategic campaign that the university has embarked on, one of our goals is to work on endowing the positions all around the world of our Global Gateway and Center directors. And now Lisa joins Kevin in having a named directorship. That's a big deal, and we hope to be able to replicate that around the world. Why is that important? Because it gives us more funding and more resources. It also allows our leaders and NDI more generally to be seen as being at the top of their game, and that's a really good thing. On top of that named position, the university has dedicated more funding in honor of Martin and Carmel to support our work in the west of Ireland. So $500,000 has now been put towards supporting initiatives in the West, working with everyone from our students to the Harper Cancer Research Institute. Lisa and I still have to talk about how we want to use that money wisely to increase the impact that Notre Dame's faculty and students have in the west of Ireland. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so any other announcements that people have from your corner of the world that you would like to share? Remember, we're moving to an interactive format. Don't be shy. Okay, if not, then we're going to go on. So what I'd like to do now is talk about two things before Mike Hildreth joins us. One is about the strategic planning process for the university writ large and where we are at in that process. And then use that as a bridge to talk about the work of NDI, creating our strategic plan for the university. The university finished its strategic planning process at the end of August. Over the summer, the provost had been working with both his cabinet, the President's Leadership Council, and the Dean's Council to finalize the actual strategic plan document, which has now been published. You can see it on the web, and for those on campus, we have hard copies as well. In that document, he articulates where we are going as a university in terms of our ambitions for research, our ambitions for the student experience we create, our ambitions to have an impact in the world. If you have not already read that, I would strongly encourage you to do so. The reason being is that we all have a role to play in making that strategic plan a success. And it has really been a group effort across the university to get to that document. But as he was quick to say, after that document was approved by the Board of Trustees and published and disseminated to everyone, was that that's actually just the starting gate. Even though we've been working on this for the last year and a half, where we go now is what's most important. Where we go now in terms of executing those goals of becoming a more global university, being of service to church in the world, working to mitigate poverty, ensuring that we have diversity, equity, and access on campus, and for our students and faculty and staff, working on caring for our common homes. All of the themes that you've heard me talk about and you've talked with one another about over the past year and a half have become crystallized in this strategic framework. It's called a framework because it's meant for us to hang ideas on and to use as a structuring device, a roadmap, a guide for our own choices and our work. And it was with that spirit that the global leadership team came to the process of planning NDI's strategic plan. As I was getting information about how the university was thinking about its global ambitions and about the overall next 10 years, we used that information to help inform what priorities we would set so that we would be in good alignment and in good formation with the university. As a reminder to people, there were many instances where colleges and schools had already done their strategic plans before the university framework came out. As a result, they then had to go back and say, wait a minute, we're not in good alignment, and that's more work. We've timed it beautifully, and we've come up with a strategic plan for NDI that I hope will allow us to be essential in the work of the university in its new framework, and also allow us to continue to build on what we did in the last strategic plan, was showcase our excellence in global education, our expertise, and work to make Notre Dame the most global research university, Catholic research university that we can. With that, I'd ask Suzanne, could you please share the slide that symbolizes our strategic plan moving forward. So I want to thank Colleen, Corey, Diane for their work on this graphic. I actually think it's a terrific graphic for all sorts of reasons. I'm going to walk us through this in the time we have left before Michael Hildreth joins us. And I also want to leave a little bit of time for questions. So briefly, we've tried, if you remember, if you were here for our last strategic plan, we gave a list of words and many people hung that in their office, at their desk. We decided to take a different tack with a more graphic and visual representation. There are lots of people who are visual learners, and I think this captures nicely what we collectively think of as being our global strategy moving forward. You'll see at the bottom of the strategy that education and students are at the foundation of everything we do. So we have 4 goals in our global strategy. The first is regarding education and students. Provide all students with integrative learning experiences that develop global competencies and understanding through holistic educational, research, and professional opportunities and services. We have a fundamental responsibility to provide our students with the best global experience in the classroom, out of the classroom, in the workplace, doing research. This is very, very important, and that undergirds everything that we do. Next, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen that research and scholarship forms another one of our key goals. We need to engage faculty and scholars to inspire and facilitate collaborative and impactful global research informed by the university's strategic priorities. We have repeatedly talked about the fact that we have an obligation to support faculty in their production of new knowledge for the common good, and that we have an obligation to work with them so that their research can have a more extended reach, can have a greater resonance for the communities where their research matters, and have a greater resonance for us and our global reputation as being the premier global Catholic research university in the world. So continuing to support faculty research and student scholarship is very important. Everyone has a role to play in this. Jonathan's team does by connecting faculty with the gateways and centers. Our colleagues in ISSA have a role to play in making sure that we're welcoming postdocs and new faculty and new students. We all have a responsibility to connect with Notre Dame research and make sure that our work is complementary to theirs. Let's go on. Workplace organization and culture. That's on the left-hand side, and you can see it first and foremost as you're looking at this visual. Build an NDI organization and culture that motivates, develops, and supports an inclusive team of global professionals and delivers our mission, vision, and strategy with excellence. We cannot support our students and be a recognized leader in global education, and we cannot support global faculty research if we don't take care of our own organization first and make sure that we are supporting one another, that we've created an equitable and inclusive work environment, that people see this as the best place to work at Notre Dame, that people see that we're on the cutting edge of thinking about Notre Dame in new and exciting ways that are true to its mission and vision, that we welcome people from all walks of life and all backgrounds to come and join this project of global education. We have to have a strong workplace organization and culture. We have to continue to commit to one another about being transparent, about being honest, about having difficult conversations, about advancing our goals together and not being siloed across countries, across continents, time zones, across divisions. So that's a really important part. And that's the third piece. The last one, where the compass arrow is pointing upwards, external engagement. Lead with our expertise to enhance strategic engagement locally and globally as a thoughtful collaborator, a valued partner, and trusted steward of the university's purpose. The global leadership team chose those words, that phrase, thoughtful collaborator, valued partner, and trusted steward, very intentionally. Why? Because each and every person in this room is a trusted steward of Notre Dame's reputation, of Notre Dame's commitment to excellence, of our care for others and our commitment to the common good. And we do that all around the world because you are a valued partner and thoughtful collaborator, not just with folks on campus, but with people in your own city, with those leading universities, with those cultural institutions, with the church and clergy, with colleagues from other faiths who are engaged in work with Notre Dame. All of that, you play a critical role. You are outward-facing ambassadors on the ground all around the world. And if you're in South Bend, you're that same ambassador to our students and faculty, but also to people in the community of South Bend, which figures prominently in the new university strategic framework as well. We all have an obligation and responsibility to be externally facing. And so this part of our global strategy for NDI reminds us of that and challenges us to make those partnerships deeper. We don't need 100 partnerships. We need to think about the partnerships we do have, or the ones we really want because we know how much they can impact our students and faculty, and then follow those and deepen those and make them special, right? I'm going to pause there. That's the global strategy in a nutshell. What I'll send after the meeting later today is a visual of this graphic. And then also we'll be sending the goals, objectives, and key results again to everybody so that you have those as well. You've been talking about them within your teams, but what questions do you have for me about this global strategy as it relates to the university's strategic plan? And Suzanne, if you can take the slide off, please, then I'll be able to see who raises their hand. But please ask questions about these 4 areas. Mary Denyer, hello in London. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. I think the strategy is fantastic. It's really exciting to be a part of it. It's a question, and it's not a gripe, but it's a question about the workplace stuff and around the fact that we're all affiliates, which causes all kinds of problems in being able to access the various things that people in NDI campus thing. So is there any thought within the university, because I know this is not an NDI thing, this is a university thing, around making sure that the staff overseas are treated more like members of Notre Dame and not affiliates?
It's an excellent question. And yes, I'm going to answer your question in 2 ways. It's a very important question and one that really matters to all of us and matters more equally importantly to the university. As a part of preparing for finalizing our strategic plan, I spoke with all of the deans and with my fellow vice presidents who serve on the President's Leadership Council. In talking with them, where the plan had a direct intersection with their work, I would highlight that and put on the table that this was something we needed to work on together. So I just met with Heather Christofferson 2 weeks ago as the VP for Human Resources to say there's unfinished business as it relates to the affiliates project, and we need to bring people on board so that the university sees that we are one NDI, we're one Notre Dame, everyone is an employee, and that we have the right legal and financial and HR structures around that. She committed to working with me on that in the coming years. I have a meeting today with Diraj. Diraj is in the room. He's here on campus. He and I are meeting with General Counsel today to talk about finalizing moving forward with a legal entity in India. We're having similar conversations in Mexico City. We've talked about Hong Kong. Each of these pieces is really important. The last thing I'll say is that I sit on the Institutional Risk and Compliance Committee. And I have highlighted that this is a potential risk for us if we don't actually create the structures that allow for people to be fully integrated into the university. And the university is in a different place than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 50 years ago on this regard. We have an obligation to keep pushing that in our own relationships to make it clear that we won't be finished until we're fully integrated into the university. And I think we'll get there in these next 10 years. I actually do. I think the affiliates project won't take that long, but there's a lot of work that comes after that that will take will take several years, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Other questions that people have from wherever you're sitting? Thank you. I really appreciate that, Helen. It's nice to have another question from London. Hello.
Hello, I hope you can hear me because I've got headphones in. So
yeah, you're good.
Can't wave. Yep, I'm great. So it's kind of related to Mary, but based on faculty and teaching as well. So in what I've discovered working side by side as an academic and staff member is that in London, because we're neither a UK HEI nor are we an American university, actually accessing research grants and funding that could help grow some of the research projects you want to do, or to do in the UK they call it impact work with our students within class. You can't access those, and equally the UK now in its wisdom is back in the Horizon EU funding pot, but you would have faced the same problem there, that you couldn't access the Horizon funding. So how is the university thinking of growing its work with research and faculty and also with students when there's that kind of barrier?
Excellent question. And it does affect both our faculty and our students, as you say. I'm going to answer again in two ways. I hope you don't mind that, because it's two different pathways to being more successful in this area. The first is I want to turn to Sylvia. Sylvia, you worked very hard and championed on behalf of the university the Rome Global Gateway becoming a research institute, which then unlocked certain kinds of privileges and access to funding for research. Do you want to say just a quick couple of sentences about that work? I'm using you as an example to say this is the kind of work we would need to do worldwide to find out how to unlock, Helen. But Sylvia, do you want to say something about that?
Sure. The process, I'm sure, is country specific, but essentially what we were able to accomplish is it's bureaucratic in nature, but it became at the end of a long reporting exercise, essentially, research activities happening at the Gateway. So now that we've been recognized as research institutions by the Italian Ministry of Education and Research and University. But what that comes with the Italian Ministry of Interior is the ability to sponsor research visas, which seems like a small thing, but it actually is not, because that allows us to bring faculty in Italy or researchers in general who have no teaching obligations with us. So we've done that, but then COVID hit. But anyway, we've done that a couple of times, and we're preparing to do it one more time this year. So this, again, to us is a nice card to have in our pocket for all the postdoctoral positions, for instance, that we're sponsoring and will be sponsoring in the future, as well as graduate, possibly other types of postgraduate programs. The question on accessing funds is slightly more complicated, because the status per se, unfortunately, because we remain a non-Italian based institution, does not help us with European funds. There are, however, 3 different types of European funds for academic research, and let's say the third one, meaning the more complicated one to get, because it's open to the entire world, would also be open to us. And so that's the angle we've been working on with Notre Dame Research for a while, actually, to try to figure out what the strategies will be to get to that. And I think that is a project. I mean, even if we kind of unfortunately got to approve the SAC, meaning possibly at this stage, given our own Rome legal status, we cannot proceed on the regular funding for European-based entities. I think a consideration about the current status could be part of a revised strategy for accessing funds, at least for the European Union, possibly not only, even for locations that already have an established status.
Thank you for that, Sylvia. And something you said embedded gets me to the second half of my answer, back to you, Helen, and to everyone in the room. You heard Sylvia mention as a passing phrase there that she's been working with Notre Dame Research. We have been working with Notre Dame Research. With the new VP coming on board for Notre Dame Research, we're in a great position. He's very committed to raising more global funds. And like Mike Hildreth, who we're going to meet in 2 seconds, he's committed as one of his key strategic initiatives for the coming year to work with NDI and to work on increasing the global footprint. Understanding, because he did this at Purdue, that we have to have legal structures and the correct status in these various countries to be able to secure the research money. It does go back to what I said earlier about Dheeraj and Mumbai. We're bringing in research money and we have researchers there, but if we're not legal within the country and we don't have a structure to actually appropriately receive those funds, we're not going to be able to apply for and win those multi-million-dollar grants. What I'd like to see is that all of our platforms around the world in the global network have a robust research portfolio and set of initiatives and enterprises and endeavors that students and faculty and local students and faculty can plug into. But it gets back to the devil's in the details and to Mary's question. If we don't have the right status, all that sort of falls by the wayside. That's the work that lies ahead for us in this administrative compliance legal space, but it has ramifications for our faculty and our students' intellectual development and impact. I hope that answers your question, that we're on it. With that,
that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're most welcome. So we're now, Mike Hildreth is in the waiting room. So I'm going to ask Suzanne to bring him in. If you have more questions about the strategic plan or comments, shoot me an email, of course. I am more than happy to hear it. The last thing I'll say as Mike is ushered into the room is please join me in thanking, and I mean this very sincerely because the work has been hard, 2 different groups to thank. First, the global leadership team for the extended work on crafting the strategic plan that we have collectively agreed to move forward. Can everyone please give them a round of applause for that work, which has not been easy. Secondly, I also want to thank everyone in the room. The expectation and what we talked about as a group was that everyone owns this strategic plan because the entire division has been engaged from start to finish. You completed those questions and surveys that went to OSPR at the beginning of the process. You talked with your team leaders throughout the summer. You've been working on goals that map onto this. Everyone here has had the opportunity to have input and has in fact inputted, and I am grateful for that. So thank everyone in the room. It is one NDI strategic plan, and I'm excited to see what we can do with it in the coming year and in the next 5 years. So thank you to everybody for that. That's good. With that, Mike, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I love it. Yes. Hello. So everyone, I would like to welcome Mike. I'm realizing, Mike, that I should give you a formal introduction. Would you like a formal introduction?
No, that's okay. Everyone can read the press release or whatever you can find it.
You can read the press release. As you can tell, Mike is a very humble person. I'm grateful for your time today and for this chat. We thought it would be important to ask you to come because we as a division are very committed to increasing our engagement with and having a greater impact on the life of our graduate students. And so we thought you would be a great leader to talk to today. And so we can talk about graduate students in a second, but for people who don't know you or have never met you or worked with you before, do you mind telling us how you actually ended up at Notre Dame? What's your Notre Dame story, as people say?
Sure. So I came here from spending 5 years as a postdoc. Actually, my wife and I were both at postdocs in Geneva, Switzerland. So hence already an international tie right there. I was at CERN, the particle physics lab in Europe, and my wife was at the University of Geneva. And we were fortunate enough to get 2 postdocs in the same place. And then we were fortunate enough to get 2 jobs at the same place here at Notre Dame. There were 2 openings. We applied for them and got them. And so here we are, 24 years later almost. So that's how we ended up here. Although, it would the draw, growing up Catholic, always sort of rooting for Notre Dame on TV. I have a great photo of myself visiting campus here at the tender age of 18 months, right after Hesburgh Library was built. So there's me, in front of Touchdown Jesus all those years ago. So yeah, I think there was always a draw, and I think that we've felt at home here. My wife actually grew up in Indiana, so that was an additional plus. So
where did you grow up?
I grew up outside of Boston.
Okay.
And so and we've sort of been all over the place. We did grad school on the West Coast, postdocs in Europe, and then here we are back in the Midwest. So but yeah, it's been very enjoyable to be part of the dramatic growth of the university, and to sort of play a role in making this university better, and all the things that have gone on over that time span. It's been an exciting place to be. So we've really enjoyed our time here so far.
Did you think you would be here for your entire career when you first came 24 years ago? Did you have any idea?
No. I mean, no, I had no idea. So, I mean, we've just sort of, kept going, kept running with it. There's always been something more interesting to do here. And so, we haven't really felt the need to look other places, because I always tell when we're interviewing prospective faculty members, I always say that, there are many worse places you could be than a wealthy private university. And, there are a lot of resources available here. And if you have good ideas, you can make things happen. And so far we've been able to do some pretty interesting things, and do interesting science, and work on some interesting projects. So we haven't really felt the need to go elsewhere, really.
I appreciate the phrase that there are interesting things going on here. You made a decision last year to throw your hat in the ring to become the new dean of the graduate school and vice president. How did you make that decision, and what attracted you to imagining yourself as the leader of the graduate school?
I mean, so part of it comes from having spent time in the College of Science dean's office. So as you know, I was an associate dean over there for 7 years. So it was the associate dean for research and graduate studies. And so that was sort of gave me a sort of bigger picture view of a college, at least. One of those years I was actually interim dean of science. And so like anyone stepping into one of those roles, of course, you're suffering from massive imposter syndrome, because you don't really know if you're going to be able to do the job, and all the other deans are really kind of intimidating. But yeah, by the end of that, I think I was comfortable in that role, at least, and at least felt that I could do it. And certainly the other deans were very encouraging, and so I think that gave me some impetus to think about ways that I could be a leader at the institution. And so when this opportunity was available, I sort of thought about that. The dean of the graduate school touches almost every program on campus. So there really is, now there's a flip side to that, because the only way that we can do anything in the graduate school is by working with all the other programs on campus, because all the students are, of course, in departments or colleges or whatever. And I don't have any faculty reporting to me, which is both a plus and a minus. And so we can only cooperate. But if we cooperate well, we can move the entire institution forward. So that's attractive. And so the impact of this position can be quite large. And so I think being able to imprint something on the future of the university was attractive. So I think that gives us sort of main motivations for thinking about that job.
It's encouraging and heartening to hear you say that you think of it as the collaboration empowers the university as a whole to move forward. We talk a lot about that within this division, because I think there are some similarities that we have with the graduate school in terms of touching and serving and supporting everyone. but not necessarily controlling everyone, right? Or controlling the direction of an event. And I think that makes things more interesting, can make things more complicated, but can also make it a lot more fun. One question that people often have when you come in as a new leader is, do you come in already having an idea of where you want to take the graduate school, or have you had an open mind and just learned nonstop since July 1st, and now you're starting to formulate where you want to go with your strategic plan, or is it somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between. I mean, I think in order to become a leader in one of these positions, you have to have put forward a vision for where you want to take the unit or whatever it is that you're taking over. So I certainly have a vision of making the graduate school. So it can be relatively vague. And so, the details are forthcoming, but I think I've always talked about making the graduate school both excellent and distinctive. I think we are an excellent research university, and we can always improve higher quality students, better postdocs. Those are the engines that drive the research enterprise here on campus. And so our ultimate goal is to get the best students and postdocs here so that we can have the best faculty, so that we can have the best experiences for everybody, including undergraduates. That's the sort of virtual cycle narrative. But we can't just be another powerful research university, because there are a lot of those. And so one of the things that I think we need to do is to figure out ways to make our experience as a university for our students and postdocs distinctive in a way that reflects the mission of Notre Dame and who we are as a university. And so how we do that is an open question. There are a couple of ways that have been sort of percolating through various discussions along campus for a while, and I'm sort of trying to crystallize those and put those forward as strategic objectives. But you can imagine having ethics woven through the graduate curriculum. This ties perfectly well with the new ethics initiative that was just announced. I've already had many discussions with Megan Sullivan on this topic. So I think that's something that we can talk about in the immediate future. I would love to see an opportunity for community engagement and community service woven through the graduate curriculum. Maybe that ties into the poverty initiative. Maybe that ties into the democracy initiative, even in terms of community engagement. So ways to give graduate students who want these things as part of their graduate education, ways to explore beyond their very narrowly focused PhD topic and really become the kind of servant scholar that we would like to be producing. So if we could do that in a way that maintained the high academic standard of the programs, I think that would make us distinctive. And so we're going to be exploring ways of doing that and putting some funding behind these things to see what kinds of programs that we can develop in this space.
I appreciate that answer. You and I have had great conversations so far about how global and our global network and the folks here might fit into that vision. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
So that was the part that I left out. So thanks for the question. So another opportunity that we have, I think, and I welcome some thoughts with you in this space. So if you look at our undergraduate experience, what is it? 75% of our undergraduates are studying abroad. Why are we not a study abroad university for graduate students? I think that would be really cool. We have many partnerships with universities around the world, but we have very few students that take advantage of those. And are there ways? Now, I think this has to be done with genuine research partnerships. We can't just send students to Zimbabwe and expect that they're going to have a great experience. I'm not sure what they would do. So I think with building scholarly partnerships with researchers at these other places and figuring out ways that we could advance the research mission of the university, but also allow students to get that experience of working abroad, seeing either it could go both ways, right? Seeing world-class research facilities that we don't have, or experiencing what kind of research facilities look like in places that are so underserviced that it's amazing that they can actually do what they're doing. So I think both perspectives are really useful for our students to obtain. And so if we can think of ways, and again, this is a big idea, but we need to figure out, the details of how to do this. So I would love to start talking about study abroad in the graduate space. The second piece of this is that we know that we are not reaching many excellent students around the world who might be interested in coming to Notre Dame. We don't really have a strategy for international graduate recruiting. We haven't really gone through the effort of building the extensive networks that are required to do that well. We don't have, at least in the research space, global presence in media or in people's minds, really. If you talk to many of our graduate students, we don't, the reason they ended up at Notre Dame is pretty random if they're coming internationally. It was, they met somebody or whatever, and there hasn't been a sort of coordinated effort to reach out around the globe to bring students to Notre Dame. And so, there have been pockets have done this really well in the undergraduate space, but in the graduate space, we really haven't had the sort of wherewithal to do that. So that's another piece. The third piece on the international front is to think about ways of supporting our international students here on campus. And I know that NDI is working there, and I think we need to, I need to have some more meetings to understand what all is going on. I have been talking with the deans, and I think everybody realizes that we need to figure out more that we can do to help our students on board to campus and to help their communities as they're here. And I think there's probably some willingness to put more resources behind that as well across the university. So I think that's a local international focus, but I think it's also very important we want our students to have the best experience possible. And so I think we need to do a little bit more thinking about what we can do to support them.
I think all three of those ideas are excellent. And I appreciate how each one of those dimensions that you just described has a direct correlation to the work that somebody's doing somewhere in the network, whether it's recruiting from a local base and a local sense of strength about how they might be able to connect with graduate students through key research partners, or whether it's ISSA here on campus, or whether it's sending graduate students abroad in formalized study abroad programs, or just in terms of getting more opportunities for global research individually. Why don't we turn it over to the group? Questions that you have for Mike in the time remaining about this global vision that he just started to sketch out. As you can hear, he's eager to hear from us as thought partners, just as he's been interrogating and conversing with the deans and with other with department chairs and other faculty leaders. So what questions do you have for Mike? Yes, excellent. Thank you, Maggie. Maggie, it's great to see you. Please go ahead, and then Thais, you'll follow up.
Hi, Mike. So I'm just wondering, where you want to begin with this work here. Do you have a plan set in place to maybe do an analysis or report on each of the countries or cities that Notre Dame has global locations in, to see what the research priorities are already here? Because I'm just thinking with Dublin, as you're probably well aware, the semiconductor industry or the Cran Institute at Trinity is really world class, and we already have some undergraduate students who've done projects in that area. Or would you appreciate if maybe NDI took on some of that work, white page reports on each location's research expertise, and where we could offer opportunities for grad students?
I think that's an interesting question. So to be perfectly honest, I've been so busy that I have a plan to make a plan, but I don't have a plan. But I welcome suggestions. I think that's an interesting. It may be a bit wide in or in huge in scope, although I guess you are the local experts on the ground in the local areas, so maybe it's not so much of a stretch. I would be slightly hesitant at first blush to sort of ask for, hey, can you do a complete analysis of the local university environment and all the strengths and weaknesses? I mean, that sounds like a lot of work. So I think part of this would be, I think, very interesting. And I think maybe we can do this. This is not going to happen overnight as well. So as you from the different locations visit campus, I think that might be a way to bring groups of faculty together and talk about the different partnerships that can exist in those areas. So sort of share the work, because the faculty members are going to know some of their colleagues in these areas. And so I think putting some burden on the faculty, because if you hand them a bunch of stuff, they're not going to read it, I think. And so we need to have some discussions among the faculty and bring them along with us, because I don't think if you just put opportunities in front of them that this is going to be enough incentive to bring them on board. So I think it's going to have to be a partnership between the gateways or the local representatives, and I mean there has to be obviously some information exchange. So for example, even back in May that we met, Thais, when you were here, I hadn't appreciated all the different opportunities that are going on in Brazil, and so having a meeting like that where we bring a bunch of faculty along with some local knowledge that here are the programs in Brazil that the faculty might be interested in, then I think you get a sort of two-way conversation, and then that can stir up some excitement that would generate some more activity. So I think having a sort of preliminary list ahead of time, but going through a whole report, I think may be just a lot of work. But I think it has to be a two-way exchange of information.
Thanks for that, Mike. Maggie, I'll add one other thing to your question. This is when you get what we'll send later today about the goals and objectives and key results, one of the things under that strategic partnership list is to do an inventory where we think there might be synergies and strengths. My hope would be that we share, you'll hear more about this in the next 4 months pretty quickly, but my hope would be that we'd have some mapping that I could share with the deans when I have a large scale, including Mike, when I have a large scale meeting with them to talk about global strategy in early January. So stay tuned on that, but it's a great question. And Mike, thanks for the answer. Thais, Charlotte, and Esteban, you'll get the last question, and then we'll wrap up. Thais.
Actually, it's more a comment.
Okay.
That I'm really excited, with this new phase of, the work with the graduate school and the graduate department and NDI, because I feel this lack of, growing now in this area. So it's really important that we connect recruitment and research, because when we have students from our countries at Notre Dame, it's much easier, to collaborate with them and to work with them. I have been seeing this. The ones that I can go forward are the ones that are from our country and are at Notre Dame. So thank you so much, Mike. I'm really looking forward to work with you. So count on me.
Okay. And I should inject here. I met a number of people from the Latin American Advisory Council at the football game sort of 10 days ago, and they were very enthusiastic about working with NDI and activating the alumni network to help it with international graduate recruiting, which I think is both a fantastic idea but also a necessary component. And so those partnerships are also really interesting. And I'm sure you're already exploiting some of those connections, but I think without those connections, that makes the whole thing so much easier. If we can use the alumni networks as well to bring all these people together. So anyway, that's a brief comment.
Thanks for that. And Thais, your enthusiasm is shared by a lot of people in the room, in the chat, both Leah and Jackie talked about their excitement from each of their respective portfolios. And then Maria Mercedes just asked Mike on chat before we get to Charlotte and finishing up with Esteban, talking about Mexico's strategy of working with national councils of science and technology for cost share models. These partnerships require MOUs and agreements. I'm assuming you're excited about the prospect that a National Science Technology Council would pay.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. That's great. I'm glad you're giving us the green light to go for broke on that.
I mean,
I thought you would, but it's good to hear you say it.
You've been working on something with Conacyt forever, right?
We have with Conacyt forever, but we're making progress with some of their friends, and I feel optimistic about Maria Mercedes bringing the money to us. Charlotte.
Go ahead.
You're next.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, to reiterate, like I'm excited as well. This is amazing news and like very, very excited about it. And anecdotally, we've had a few grad students come through the London Global Gateway over the years and doing their independent study alongside teaching experience has been very beneficial for their future prospects for employment. And I know they're very grateful for the opportunities to come and work internationally. So this is just adding to that experience, which I think is amazing. My question is actually, what point in their career would you see this internationalization engagement taking place? Would it be throughout their career as a grad student, or would it be a specific time period?
I think the sort of optimum window is probably sort of midway through post-candidacy, certainly. But then as their research is starting to ramp up, there may be a crucial set of experiments or a crucial visit to some archives or something that they need to do as part of their work. And so they need to have enough of a plan to know that they need this additional experience or this additional research data or whatever it is. So yeah, I would say third, fourth year out of their PhD programs is probably the optimal window.
Thanks for that, Charlotte, and thanks for the answer. Esteban, very briefly, fire away.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. This is fantastic to hear all these initiatives and ideas about internationalizing the grad school. I have one quick question about I completely agree that there is probably a huge opportunity for providing grad students with study abroad instances. Now, one limiting factor, though, is that we don't have, as far as I know, a system to grant credits to grad students going abroad to take classes or do research. No, because of course it would make it much easier for grad students to go abroad and do a semester or whatever. No, if they could get credit kind of easily for their courses or coursework or research.
Right. I mean, if they're post candidacy, they're just signed up for dissertation. So I mean, our research group sends students to CERN all the time. We promise that they get to spend a year there at least. Some of them never come back. But they're just signing up for dissertation credit. So there's not really they're not really taking classes in that sense. Yeah, I agree with you that the transfer credits is a little trickier, and we probably need some kind of formal agreement between the universities to do that kind of thing. I don't think that would be all that difficult. We just probably have to write it down. But I'm less concerned about that than the sort of pure research kind of exchange. I think if we're talking about sharing classes, then we need to have more formal agreements between the different departments or whatever. But obviously we can do that. As you know, we've been talking with Puck for a long time about astrophysics, right? And so that's an example of something that maybe we should revisit and try to move forward again. But we changed the name of our department now, so it's physics and astronomy. So there's been movement in that direction.
That's great. Great to hear.
Mike, I know your time is precious and we're at the bottom of the hour, so I will say thank you. Please, NDI, join me in thanking Mike for his comments, his leadership, and we look forward to working with you in the
Absolutely. Me as well. So I think this is a vital partnership for the graduate school. So thanks very much for having me.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Take care.
So team, we will wrap up. Just a couple of final housekeeping questions. I'm sorry that we're going a little long. I apologize for that. One thing is that for those within the division here in South Bend, a reminder that all of our global leadership team will be coming to South Bend the first week in October to work on imagining how we execute and start to deliver off of the strategic plan. So Maggie's question was a great one because we're going to be taking that question up about mapping strategic partnerships so that we're the experts and can be good matchmakers. They'll also have the chance, the GLT, while they're here, to meet with development officers and talk about the work you're all doing in the global locations to, in fact, hopefully raise money and get fundraisers excited about giving us the funds to do what we need to do. So an exciting couple of weeks coming up. For everyone, thank you again for your work on the strategic plan. I hope you're excited about it. We'll send out an email later today with more details. But I'm grateful for your service. I'm grateful for your commitment to Notre Dame, to our students and our faculty. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day and a good rest of the week. Thanks, everyone. Be well.